Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm your host, Justin Phillips. With me, as always, the man known to the X world as Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss is strong as silver.
And we have an amazing show for you tonight. We have some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline, so make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you're the first to be alerted about it. But not only do we have some great stuff coming up on our next couple episodes, we have a real fun one tonight. We have a couple ride-along guests with us who are going to be joining, and I'm going to turn it over to Shadow Gov to introduce our fine friends.
So we have the illustrious Stelio Kontos coming at
I told you before we started that if you mispronounce this, I wouldn't do this. Say it right.
You're still going to do it.
Say it right, or I'm not doing this.
Stelio Kontos.
Thank you. It's good to be here and armchair quarterbacking this shit show of a podcast. God forbid we make it any better.
Glad to have you. Of course, that is a pseudonym for privacy and legal reasons, so that we are not liable for anything he says. Anyway, our next guest, JS Online. JS Online on Twitter, X as well. An infamous account as well. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'd say I'm probably most known for the New York Times, getting in the New York Times during the Janet Protasewicz race, where some MAGA boomer leaked group chat text messages, and somehow that ended up in the New York Times. So glad to be on here.
Yeah, that was a great time. So
I don't know why you decided to invite your degenerate online friends to this podcast, but I'm excited.
Well, all he's going to do is hijack it, telling fake stories about himself. But continue.
It is a great time. It is a great time to have some color commentary, some additional color commentary. Yeah. So first, Justin, you want to lead us off?
Yeah.
First story.
Yeah.
Kind of the obvious one.
So when we're recording this, it's been about 8 hours since the announcement came down that Bill Berrien is going to withdraw from the governor's race. And frankly, I had a real long diatribe to go through about why he should drop out of the race. Obviously, he beat us to that punch. He's choosing to step back from the race because of some new stories that came out recently that really reflected poorly on him. But I think overall, Bill Berrien failed to gain traction with the grassroots. His only support was coming from some old guard Republican donors. There was an obvious strong Never Bill crowd due to his stance on COVID, ranked choice voting, his anti-Trump stance in 2020, his pro-Nikki Haley support in 2024. I think, all those things were just rakes that he stepped on instead of actually running a positive campaign. He failed to adequately explain the positions that he took. We gave him advice on this podcast on how to, in one or two sentences, explain how he should have handled those issues. He failed to. He brushed off these blogs that he had subscribed to with some, questionable sexual content with an appeal to a pro-Catholic values stance, which was ludicrous. And frankly, I don't know any YRs, anyone in AFP or Turning Point USA members who were pro-Bill Berrien, so he wasn't picking up that steam. So instead of doing any campaign or any connecting with the grassroots, he stepped on rakes, and it's his time to leave. So fellas, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, before I turn it over to the peanut gallery, Bill Berrien did one thing right in this campaign, and that was drop out. That was the only thing he's done correctly. He made a decision. He did it quickly, and he did it right away. And compared to every other decision that he's done on the campaign, whether it's, saying that, I'm not going to fire state employees for talking crap about Charlie Kirk's death. Yeah, to how he responded to the Dan Bice article. Literally every single interview, the Dan O'Donnell interview, we don't have to rehash everything, but quite literally every turn that they made as a campaign seemed to be a rake step just in the total wrong direction. So him dropping out was the only good thing that he has done. And then on top of that, with the way he actually responded when he actually withdrew the actual letter he sent, it essentially said, try to explain away the story again, the Dan Bice story, which of course with politics, if you're trying to well, technically it's this, like the perception is reality when it comes to these stories. And he clearly, it struck a chord, which I think it would strike anybody, but he was clearly trying to still set the record straight in his, last statement as a gubernatorial candidate, which like, it just kind of reeks of like desperation of trying to save the reputation. Take the L, just say, I'm dropping out, and that's that kind of stuff. So he should have just left it off as that. But yeah, his campaign's gonna kind of go out with a little bit of a whimper.
Well, I live in a glass house, so I'm not going to throw stones. But anytime you're tweeting at Eric Brooks, fuck you and you're an asshole, I don't think that's a good sign for your campaign. I think there was a lot of missteps that could have been avoided. Did he not think that this was going to come to light when he ran for governor? I mean, aren't there people that vet these things? These consultants that are working for him, aren't these the people that should be looking for these before you announce and run for governor? I don't know. I'm not here to judge, but I mean, can he really be shocked and angry that all this came out?
I'll have to add on to Stelio's comments. First of all, I think did he have Nikki Haley's staff or something? I feel like I heard that. So, I mean, everything's now coming full circle. It's making complete sense. The other thing I'll say is I did talk to a few Democrats who also kind of mentioned that their biggest threat, or at least their perceived biggest threat in this race, was Bill Berrien. And considering how horrible they are at running campaigns, that's never a good sign. I know some people like to kind of say, well, if Democrats feel that way, it must mean he's a real threat. No, Democrats are not smart people, and they run their campaigns into the ground, as you saw in 2024. So it's kind of interesting how they wanted him, but I think it just shows how the Republican Party kind of dodged a bullet. Because, he probably did have a lot of money. He did have the backing of the establishment in our state. So there was always a chance.
Establishment, though?
Well, I don't know if you call it establishment.
There was a section of, I truly say like old guard Republicans, especially in Waukesha County, and I spelled guard GARD, who were supporting Bill.
Okay, that checks out then. So, yeah, JS Online, you want to finish those comments up then?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would just say if the Democrats want this person to win, then we should do the exact opposite of what they do, because they probably focus grouped that, and they brought in a bunch of focus group people from, Madison, inner city Madison, that don't know anything about the reality of rural Wisconsin or anything. So, I mean,
did you just make all that up? Like,
no.
How do you know? How do you know he did any of that? I think he just made all that up.
Oh, no, I didn't say that he for sure did that. What I'm saying is they probably did, because they're Democrats and they focus group everything.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Well, I just think that the Bill Berrien, we are afraid to run against Bill Berrien. It's just the classic. Well, when you look at the race, I mean, Bill Berrien, Josh Schoeman, and now Tom Tiffany, which we'll get to. Bill Berrien obviously being the most quote unquote moderate, they probably see that as the most able to, work the middle, which sure, that's a fine analysis, but you can't win an election if your entire base abandons you. And that, I mean, basically since he entered the race with the Dan O'Donnell interview, where he tried to defend the COVID comments and he tried to defend the ranked choice voting comments, and none of the answers were really good. Mm-hmm. None of the answers actually, I would have respected it more if he just came out and said, I made a mistake and I've changed since then. You could still not believe him, but there's something to be said about politicians actually trying to maybe right a wrong instead of just gaslighting. I think that's ultimately my biggest takeaway about Bill Berrien's campaign, is they just attempted to gaslight the Republican base into just a kind of accepting the crap sandwich of, all these other policies that he, apparently supported before, but not now. It just, none of it reeked of none of it actually seemed genuine. None of it actually seemed to actually have legs. And I think the timely exit is evidence of that.
Yeah, I will say that whether it's the blog subscriptions, it's supporting ranked choice voting, it's the COVID stances he took, supporting Nikki Haley. None of those things individually, in my opinion, were disqualifying. But when it all came from the same candidate, when you stack all those things on top of each other, again, the support for Obamacare, the anti-Trump stances in 2020, or, forgetting to log out of your personal account while attacking a very capable, very well-known young Republican from Wisconsin, all of those things, when you stack them together, is disqualifying. And so Bill Berrien is now out of the fight.
Yeah, it's the inverse of his, obviously stay in the fight moniker that he entered the race with. But
wait, that was his little slogan? Stay in the fight?
Well, never out of the fight.
Well,
right?
that's as ironic as it gets.
Yeah, I think Brooks tweeted about it or something.
On to a new candidate that's jumped into the race. So as we had one drop out, we've added one more. Congressman from northern Wisconsin, Tom Tiffany, has announced his run for governor. He did that on the Dan O'Donnell show on Tuesday, followed it up immediately with a rally, and landed the endorsement of the state and federal college Republicans, as well as neighboring Congressman Tony Weed. So a very solid rollout to start his campaign. Dems are already announced that they're running attack ads on Tom. So they're doing it, I believe, during the Packers game. So it shows that what level of a threat the Democrats see Congressman Tom Tiffany as. So again, I thought very solid rollout. It's going to make a very strong case over the next couple of weeks to months. What do you guys think?
Well, I'd say.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, is this your podcast, Journal Sentinel? Can we
I don't know.
Can we let the Shadow Governor go first? It's his podcast.
Shadow Governor can go.
It is true. Well, I'll just lead it off very simply with I actually really liked Tiffany's opening video. Very simple, nothing crazy. I am a sucker for the overproduced videos. I have to shout out, was it Push Digital that did Hovde's stuff? Loved everything that they put out. Very much enjoyed that. That was a lot of production work into that. But it was just kind of nice to have a toned down and introduction. And then, of course, yes, he had the big event in Wausau, which seemed to be very well attended. And yeah, the Democrats, of course, came right out of the gate attacking him, which make that as you will. But it was nice for a change. I mean, we had Tim Michaels, we had Hovde. It seems like we've been badgered with the, he lives out state millionaire moniker for years now. And it's nice to not have the initial attack ad be that. And, agree or disagree on tariffs, we can have that discussion. But their initial line of attack, of course, is Tariff Tiffany, Tariff Tom, Tariff, whatever you want to call them, and trying to hit him on the economic front, which obviously the economy is kind of,
that's not what they're hitting him on. They're going to hit him on abortion. That's what that ad on Sunday's about.
Well, they are going to hit him on abortion as well. But the initial ad, the ad that the Democrat Party put out was on tariffs. So
what's the ad that they're running on Sunday about? Do we know?
It's the tariff Tom Tiffany.
Yeah, tariff Tom.
Okay.
Tariff Tom. So they're attacking the economic message, which of course Tom as well. I mean, he came out about the abortion topic, right?
He did. He made some comments saying that he voted for the 20-week ban. He's glad he did that. Kind of left it there as like he'd maybe like to see it shortened, like they have done in some other states, but he didn't
commit to
it. Didn't make a hard commit.
Well, nor should he make a hard commitment. Look, I mean, this is an issue that we're still trying to get past. I think it's going to be a major driver for the Democrats in the 2026 election. I think we're still trying to figure out how to weave through that issue. And, I don't know. I think Tom Tiffany is probably the clear front runner right now, but I do think that is going to be an issue for him. As well as, he is one of the more conservative members of Congress. He is a member of the Freedom Caucus. That plays very well in northern Wisconsin, his district. They love him up there. But how does that play in, southwest Wisconsin or southern Wisconsin? I don't know. That could be a challenge for him.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting dynamic because for the past few statewide elections, there's been Southeast Wisconsin candidates. And I think obviously that's where the population center is in Wisconsin. But I think Tom Tiffany has a real opportunity because he's not as well known in the southeastern Wisconsin area. I mean, if you look at the straw polls at the state fair, it wasn't like he was blowing everyone out. I don't even remember what he got, but I know that it was like Hovde and Will Martin leading that. But he has the ability to kind of paint his image from the start. And I think as Republicans, we need to get out there in front of the Democrats. We need to paint that image because it's all about Southeast Wisconsin now knowing who Tom Tiffany is. So he's going to have to do a good job at making sure that there's a solid image when people think Tom Tiffany in Southeast Wisconsin, this is what they think of. But it's kind of a blank slate as opposed to Eric Hovde or Tim Michaels or even Rebecca Clayfish, who were known commodities and people kind of knew where they were. So it can either help Tom or it can hurt Tom, depending on how he runs his campaign. And I think for sure education, especially in that area, is going to be a big topic. I've always said Glenn Youngkin mastered the education talking point in the Virginia election. And what he did is he said education matters. He left it at that. And that could mean so many different things. But if you look at what people consistently care about a lot still in Wisconsin, especially independent voters and young family, as well as women, it's education. So I think if he has the right message on education, gets out there in front of everyone else, and actually forms identity that people are willing to vote for, I think he has a solid chance.
Yeah, I think he comes from a unique area, like you said, being from northern Wisconsin. It's certainly not the southeastern Wisconsin candidates we've had in the past. I think what's interesting about him, too, is not only has he won races, he's won Democrat districts. He's defeated, Democrat incumbents, but he's also lost. So he knows how to win a race. He knows how to lose a race. I think that adds something to how you view a campaign and know what, what works. I think he's got a real solid chance, and it's going to be great. Hopefully it's just these two candidates. Hopefully it's just Josh Schoeman, just Tom Tiffany. Both of those guys seem to be intent on running a real positive campaign, real focused on issues and, not these personal attacks, because, regardless of which one of those two fellas comes out of the primary, we need to have that unity, and we need to have it before August of 26.
Well, yeah, we just don't want a repeat of 22, which was, it was fun, I guess, at the time attacking the other one. But at the end of it, boy, it was not fun running the general election in just a couple of months and trying to rally the troops. Just never seemed like we actually did. But I am, I'm not a prophet here. I'm not an oracle, but I do think this is an experiment with Tom Tiffany.
It's a great experiment.
That if he were if he were the candidate, I think it would be there's a high risk, high reward scenario. With Evers, one of Evers' chief abilities to win re-election was regarding his ability to overperform in the small, mid-sized metro areas that are in Tom Tiffany's congressional district. And if Tom, who has overperformed Trump, has overperformed Michaels, the top of the ticket, consistently, now when you have $100 million lodged at you, will that hold up? Will those voters still turn out for him? You could make an argument, I guess, both ways. But if he could squeeze a couple hundred votes out of those towns across the 7th, that could equal a couple thousand votes. Now, obviously, how does that translate as far as the statewide? That's the big question mark. Can he rally the support in Southeast Wisconsin? Which I'm assuming, he's going to have to probably live down here in Southeast Wisconsin.
Why do you say that?
Probably for a long.
Why do you say that? Everyone says that, but that's just not the way that Wisconsin elections are trending. Your area of the state has become so much less consequential than what it was even just 4 years ago. With each election cycle, it seems like we move more towards, the Green Bay areas in northern Wisconsin, and then we decided in western Wisconsin. Those are the areas in the southeast.
Let me reform what I said then. I think he has to do a fair amount of campaign in the southeast Wisconsin, but I do think that the fact that the Southeast is a very high dense voter area, very engaged voters. I mean, as long as Dan O'Donnell, as long as some of the, they do a lot of media down here in Southeast Wisconsin, I'm sure either candidate, but especially Tom, would be fine. I mean, you also look at, for example, hearkening back to the Supreme Court election with Schimmel. Schimmel did a ton of events in Waukesha County. And
how'd that work out?
And yeah, still got a 59%. So it sounds like our ceiling really is just 59%. So as long as you don't get below that, we have a chance.
And that's the problem though. And with Southeastern Wisconsin or Waukesha counties, that ceiling used to be 65, 66%. Now it dropping down to 59% means you need to make up those margins elsewhere. But I agree with your point that, Tom is going to have to do a lot of campaigning in Southeastern Wisconsin just to build that name ID. More than what he has right now.
It's not that I think that he needs to live down here so he can get 62, 63, 64%. It's more just for, name ID. The 7th knows him. I mean, Green Bay probably doesn't know him either. So he would have to do a lot of campaigning there. Because, to Stelio's comments, the bow counties are extremely important. And Joe Handrick, stealing from him, he also a couple months ago put out a really nice thread, a great follow on Twitter as well during the elections. He put out a big thread about the WOW counties, and not the WOW counties that we know at the Waukesha, Ozaukee, Washington. The WOW counties, I think he called it like the wonderful outstate wonders, something like that. But essentially, it was like 12 or 15 counties in the 7th congressional district that voted like more than 60% for Trump or something. And then essentially voting for a greater percentage than Waukesha County and trying to maximize the votes, maximize the votes up north and try to pick up those votes up north instead of the Southeast. Right. So it plays into that.
And frankly,
Tiffany,
I think Tiffany's been a bigger part of that than I think people might realize. In that, in 2004, he ran for state Senate, lost in, northern Wisconsin, 53-46. Runs back again in 2008, loses 63-30 or 66-34. So really? Those areas were, even though I think their values were traditional conservative or, now Trumpian values, they were voting Democrat,
Union Democrat.
Exactly. As recently as, 18-ish years ago. So Tom's been a part of, growing the conservative movement in northern Wisconsin. And I think he's going to be able to do really well there. But it's like the opposite of what, I think Scott Walker faced in 2010 in the primary when he was running against Mark Newman. Mark Newman was going to win a lot of outstate. Scott Walker just needed to run up those margins in southeastern Wisconsin. I think Tom's going to have to do the opposite. He's probably going to win outstate, but he's going to need those margins in southeastern Wisconsin to win the primary.
Yeah. Gentlemen, any other additional comments?
No, I just think this is a very fascinating and hopefully this goes well experiment. I think it's very unique that we have this candidate that is from northern Wisconsin that is going to put on a serious race for governor. I think it's very fascinating to see what will happen, I guess.
Now, if we're going to look at patterns though in voter selection, I can only think of one other time, and I was trying to look it up while we were having this conversation, one other time where a member of Congress has run for governor as a sitting member in the state. And that was Mark Green in 2006. He ran unsuccessfully. 4 years later, a southeastern Wisconsin county executive, son of a Lutheran pastor, runs and wins that race. Josh Schoeman, very similar pattern. Not saying that that's, a one-to-one thing. Don't hear what I'm not saying, that it's a curse or anything, but just want to point out that
the status quo is the status quo until it's no longer the status
quo. I mean, I don't know what that guy has going for him, but one thing that he probably does have going for him is he doesn't have to run off a congressional record, which, for better or worse, Tom does.
I mean, Tiffany has probably taken some hard votes, and not necessarily hard votes in Congress, but hard votes as far as a statewide campaign for a very swing seat or very, very swing state, that is. Whereas, Schoeman has the ability to run basically a campaign strictly on your, infrastructure, your local property taxes, your local government, which are, it's a nonpartisan seat. Technically, it's very easy to not even have to really talk about Republican or Democrat. Especially if you're just talking about, well, we're going to have some major construction here, but we've lowered your property taxes, so everyone's happy, and it does resound. But of course, the county exec, I think Washington County, 100,000 people, whereas the congressional district has 750,000. Now, of course, that doesn't translate into votes directly, but it's something to at least consider. So yeah, the county exec, and then that goes on the Democrat side too, where with the county exec, which we've talked a little bit about that, and David Crowley probably has a step up on the rest of the field. But yeah, I don't think, one question I'll pose to everyone else is, do we think that there's going to be any other entrances to the
on our side?
Republican
On
side?
our side?
Yeah, Republican. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think everyone for years now has expected Tiffany to get into the race, and now that he has, I think maybe that there are some people that may not consider getting in that otherwise would have, but we're still over a year out until the election. I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't be surprised at all if by next year there's someone else that may be in the race that maybe we're not even thinking of at all today. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I had tweeted out my endorsement of Tom Tiffany as soon as he announced. So I think based off of that, I think everyone else will stay out of it.
Your influence will keep them at bay.
100%.
Well,
if they were wise, you're right.
Well, I think I tend to agree that there probably won't be any major candidates, but I'm still waiting for the Kyle Yudes of the world to
what was that one guy's name? The firefighter, for the guy from Oak Creek. What was his name? Adam Fisher.
For governor?
Adam
Fisher.
Yeah.
That was actually, that is who I was thinking. It was Adam Fisher. It was Adam Fisher for governor, but then Kyle Yudes for lieutenant governor, because Kyle Yudes was up north.
Yes.
But I do remember seeing some Adam Fisher. He had a yard sign.
Oh yeah. It still says Adam Fisher for governor, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he was not a super great candidate.
He was uncouth. We'll say it like that.
Well, anybody that puts their face on a yard sign is not.
He put his face on a truck. He was driving around and he had a custom screen printed truck with his face on it.
So yeah, to speak to this, to kind of put a bow on this one, I don't think we'll see a serious candidate. I think it's a 2-person race between Josh Schoeman, between Tom Tiffany. You're going to see, yes, a perennial candidate, kooky, out there sort of person. Maybe it's a Tim Rantham type. Not going to gain any traction. I would put any of those candidates 50-50 at best if they end up qualifying for the ballot on their own. So I think it's a 2-person race.
Yeah, and it'll probably be now the question is, I mean, the last question, I suppose, do we think this is going to be a race that comes down to, I mean, we have a convention coming up in May, or do we think that this could be over before then? Are we going to have, I just don't want to have a situation back like 2022 where the state convention is an absolute
that is not going to happen. I think this will be resolved by the end of the winter. I think by the time February rolls around, you start having these county party caucuses, getting ready for planning for the convention. I think this will all be pretty much decided. I don't think we'll
when is the fundraising? When is the fundraising deadline for the fall?
That's a question for the party. I don't know.
Well, I was just gonna say, because I think we can also make an indication.
You mean to qualify for the convention, like to speak?
No, I'm not even talking about convention. I'm just strictly talking about what are both candidates, if someone else jumps in, and what the Democrats are raising too, just to see what their primary also looks like. But unfortunately, money kind of drives everything in politics. Politics is a rich man's game, and it determines a lot. So it's not everything, of course. Alex Lazary being the largest example of that. We'll see if he ever makes a comeback to Wisconsin politics.
Well, he'd have to live in Wisconsin to make a comeback in Wisconsin politics. He's long gone.
Where's he at?
He's trying to run the World
Yeah,
Cup.
he's out of New Jersey, I believe. I mean, he might be New York, but
well,
maybe he's going to buy the Jets.
He set what $10 million on fire to take fourth place in the Democrat primary.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Who's going to stop him from buying the New York Jets?
Yeah, probably right.
But no, I think it'll be these two. And I agree. I think that the race will be decided. We will have unity coalescing behind one of those two guys
before the state convention. I think
we
better.
February is the early side. April election is the late side. I think that window is going to indicate how much support one of those guys can get, because they're hopefully going to be stumping for our Supreme Court candidate if we do field one.
Oh Lord, I kind of had forgotten that we're gonna have an April election before then, and I'm not mentally prepared for that.
Are you ever?
No, I'm probably.
You're not prepared for the show, so I mean,
I'm always prepared.
Let's stick with the Republican candidates, but let's move on to the lieutenant governor's race, and I believe we have our first officially declared candidate. I know Will Martin's been flirting with it. I think he said he intends to run, but David Varnum,
great guy,
was a candidate in the last cycle for lieutenant governor, is going to make a go at it again. I'm going to start by playing his Facebook launch announcement, and then we'll just talk about that.
I'm former Lancaster, Wisconsin Mayor David Varnum. I am also a former congressional aide and federal policy analyst at Focus on the Family for Dr. James Dobson. But two of my most important titles are husband and father, which is why I am concerned about their future and the path Democrats will lead our state down if they win the 2026 governor and lieutenant governor race. So I'm running for lieutenant governor. I'm a pro-life, pro-Second Amendment conservative Republican. What will I do if elected next year? I will work with the new administration to lower taxes to keep our retirees, young people, and businesses here in the state of Wisconsin. I will support our police and ensure that our state and local law enforcement work with federal immigration agencies to deport criminal illegal aliens. As a father to two daughters, I will work to keep men out of women's sports and their locker rooms. I support a parent's right to choose the best education for their child and to have a voice in that education. I will work to raise our test scores, standards, and expectations for our children. Together, we can set Wisconsin on the right path. Please visit davidvarnum.com to get involved and join me in taking back Wisconsin in 2026.
So that's David Varnum's announcement video. I think he hits on all the right points. Solid start.
Lieutenant governors historically are cheerleaders for the governor, for the administration. So obviously David Varnum hitting on all the Republican talking points. I have to give him also mad props for mentioning immigration enforcement. Got to make sure to get the credit there. Yeah, Shadow Governor Voss talking about immigration. Big
number one issue. If you want to win his endorsement, just talk about illegal immigration 24/7. He'll vote for you.
Or how the Earth is only 1,000 years old.
You're not
that 1,000.
You're not completely wrong there. That being said, yeah, good video. I wasn't actually. This came kind of out of the blue. I mean, not that we weren't necessarily thinking that he wouldn't run again. Just, I hadn't heard anything. There wasn't anything kind of being toyed with. Just kind of all of a sudden got an email in the inbox saying, announcing for lieutenant governor.
I was heartened. I felt very legitimized. We were on his press announcement. So got that.
You guys should have him on.
That was great.
He is a good guy.
Well,
yeah.
David Varnum's a great guy. We would, this is, if he's listening right now, which I do know that he does listen to the show.
He's a fan of the show.
So
we would love to.
We would love to have him on. So feel free to just send us an email, add us on Twitter. We'll do something. We'll get something set. It's going to be a long primary, but we'll be glad to get him on anytime. Fellas, any thoughts? David Varnum?
Great guy.
Well, I think I don't really know much about him, to be completely honest with you. Seen some stuff on Twitter here and there. I mean, so I'm not going to really touch much on that. I will say I do know Will Martin, and I think that there's not really much that's going to sway me from not supporting Will Martin in this primary. But again, not that I have a bad word to say about David whatsoever, just don't know much about him. And that may change once I learn more about him, but I think I'm totally on team Will Martin. And I think it'll be interesting to see how he announces his stuff and how he goes about it, because like Shadow had said, it's kind of tough when in your lieutenant governor. It'll also be interesting to see how many other candidates there are, because that usually gets pretty crowded.
Are we going to get a 2022 field where it was like 14, or are we going to have more of a pared down, 13?
I think we're going to have a deep list of candidates for lieutenant governor, and frankly, I'm fine with that. I think it's very different than the governor's race. I am fine with a knockdown, drag 'em out lieutenant governor primary fight, because at the end of the day, you're running as a ticket with with Tom Tiffany or with Josh Schoeman, so they can have at it all summer and campaign their butts off, because at the end of the day, that's just trying to get Republicans to the polls.
Stelio?
I don't have anything to add. I think he is a great guy. I think in 2022, he did the legwork. He went all over the state, and I think while he struggled to resonate with voters because there were 22 other candidates in the field, who knows? Maybe this time it's different. But I think he is an overall great guy. I think he's a true conservative, and I wish him all the best.
Well, do you know what? And of course, if we have him on the show, we can ask him these questions as well. But I was just kind of curious because he said former Lancaster mayor.
He's not the mayor.
He's no longer the mayor.
Correct.
And do you know what he's doing now, by chance?
Doesn't he work for that think tank? I don't know. You should pull up his LinkedIn. Maybe this is why you should do your research before you talk. I'm sure he has a LinkedIn.
Well, what I'll say is we'll just have him on the show, and he can give us the full breakdown.
Yeah, we're happy to, whether it's David Varnum or any other candidate for lieutenant governor, we'd love to have him on the show. Love to, kind of turn it over to that candidate, give them a chance to introduce themselves to the voters.
And that goes for any lieutenant governor candidate,
So if Cindy Warner wants to get in the race and hop on the podcast, I'm sure Shadow Governor would love that. So just reach out.
I mean, sure. I'm willing. I would have anybody on. That doesn't mean I will reserve all my.
Jay Schrodinger?
Again, I'll have anybody on. If Badger State Resistance wanted to come on, I'd let them.
If Justin was running for Secretary of State again.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
See, the thing is,
You're the guy in prison.
This is an aside. I did say that I would go on their show because, of course, there's been lots of back and forth, which I have put to bed for the most part. But they said I had to out myself. I had to dox myself in order to go on their show, which I just wasn't going to do because I don't trust crazy people with my name and address and all that jazz. So
you trust me.
That is true, but just slightly more than them. But that being said, yeah, good luck, David Varnum. Welcome to the show as far as the lieutenant governor race. And we'll see how that shakes out.
So, fellas, I want to stay with Republican candidates. So now that Tom Tiffany is running for governor, the race to replace him in the 7th Congressional District is just picking up. And first candidate that's declared, named Jesse Eben, former candidate. So, all right, got an opinion, but former candidate against Derek Van Orden. So she's shifting congressional districts. It's almost certain that Mary Felskowski is going to run. I've heard Romaine Quinn, another state senator, is thinking about it. Chance Green, even Rob Stashwolt apparently is kicking the tires on this. But really sticking with Jesse for a minute, my understanding is that in 2012, she signed the Walker recall petition. Now, as someone who was working in campaigns during that, I could understand it being a deal breaker. But fellas, if you're someone who wasn't politically interested 12, 13 years ago when the Walker recall was going on, or, maybe you weren't even eligible to vote, what's your take on a candidate who's now a Republican, but did something like that in signing the recall 13 years ago?
Well, I think
Don't ask this. This guy voted for Tony
I
Evers.
was
He's the perfect person to ask.
well, okay. First of all, yes, political opinion shift. But if I'm not someone that's like following politics or super just into that, I don't know how I'd feel about it because I guess it depends on age. Because if you're looking back, you're thinking about that whole era in Wisconsin, and it was obviously a pretty crazy time in Wisconsin. I was still a very young kid, and I was in elementary school, and my teacher was like gone a few days, obviously going to protest. So it's very much we lived through this, and then we lived through the recall as well. So if I'm not super into politics, I'm not really reading a lot of stuff or keeping up, I'm hearing sign the recall petition, must not be a real Republican. If that's the only thing you're hearing, you're not really seeing the other messaging. And I also understand Republicans are pretty sensitive to the quote unquote rhino word, even though that's thrown around, willy-nilly. But so I think it does matter. I think you've seen other races where similar stuff came up. Like if you look at Waukesha DA race, I believe the current DA's opponent donated to the Milwaukee DA, and that definitely hurt them.
Well, now
especially
she
in a
got hired
Republican
by the
primary.
liberal justices. So, I mean,
Who got hired?
that Bridget Shaneborn.
Yeah, Bridget Shaneborn got
she's not
hired.
yet. She's now clerking for the Supreme Court.
Yes,
of course.
So,
That bothers me. If you're going to at least own it, right? If she signed the petition in 2012, just own it. I get it that political positions change, but just own it. If she's going to go and talk about how she's been a lifelong conservative, obviously that's not true. So, this came up, you better own it. And who knows? She's probably not going to be the candidate that comes out of this primary. But I do think it is a red flag. I think, Scott Walker is the epitome of what a modern Wisconsin conservative is. We are starting to shift away from the Scott Walker era, but I think ignoring that would be foolish. But I mean, we'll see who gets in the race. I doubt she'll make it through the primary, but you never know.
Well, and I do think with the district being so heavily Republican, depending on who runs, and I don't know, I know nothing about Jesse.
This should be probably the only time we talk about this woman.
Okay. Well, and I just full disclosure, I don't know anything about her. When she announced, I said, okay, that, and then of course I read that she ran against DVO in the primary and lost. And then now she's moved. She's in the 7th now, but I don't know if she's got backers, donors that can actually, bankroll her. So I don't even know if it would come to a point where this would even be a factor in a conversation.
She definitely has donors. It's the same ones that are bankrolling this podcast,
Yeah, me. I am bankrolling the podcast. You're right. I am not bankrolling Jesse though, and if she thinks that I can, how about I can only donate like $100. That's all I got.
JS Opinions, want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. Appreciate you taking your time, sharing some opinions with you. Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so now we're going to shift to some of the Democrat candidates for governor. First one came as a surprise to many, Brett Hulsey. Now, maybe you're someone my age, you've forgotten the name Brett Hulsey. Maybe you're someone who's one of the younger millennials, Gen Z conservatives who have never really had the pleasure of watching the train wreck of Brett Hulsey in real time. So let me explain who this guy is. Brett was a 2-term member of the Assembly from 2011 to 2015, represented the city of Madison, and checked so many progressive boxes as a far left Republican hating environmentalist. Scary thing is that I think Brett now more aligns with modern Democrats than he did 10 to 15 years ago when he was in office. He's this OG left-wing nutcase who brought his own environmentally conscious low-watt bulbs to the Capitol to reduce his carbon footprint. He ran a stunt campaign for governor in 2014 as this long shot kook. He announced he was planning to hand out KKK hoods at the GOP convention that year in 2014. He ended up backing off that claim and dressed up like a Confederate Civil War general instead when he stood outside the convention. While in the assembly, he faced investigations for bringing a box cutter in and forcing his staff to take his own self-defense training, very Dwight Schrute-like, as well as threatening to bring a muzzle-loading long gun to the assembly floor, where I genuinely, if I remember this correctly, he was going to take aim at Speaker Voss, the shadow governor. Outside of his legislative craziness in 2012, he pled no contest to disorderly conduct citation after police accused him of flipping a boy off his inner tube and taking pictures of him at a Madison beach. So, Brett Halsey, the OG nutcase, has entered the chat.
Well, he sounds like your regular schizo left-wing protester that does all this crap. You know, to be fair, the elected Democrats, they're insane. But at the very least, we don't see them going that far, unless you're Tim Carpenter and trying to assault Senator Kapenga in committee, of course. So there are still, some people that carry that mantle. But Halsey just is in a league of his own, of course. Yeah, he was a schizo before schizos were mainstream in the Democrat Party. So obviously he's a throwaway candidate. He's not going anywhere. I think this is just a vanity project, of course, to get his name in the news, just so he can point at it and say, I'm still relevant. But it'll probably be, that'll probably be, he might have, I don't know if he has a cult following or something, or if he had stayed relevant over the years, but I'm going to probably say, I'll probably doubt that he did.
So want to talk about another one of those potential also ran candidates, Brett Halsey. I think if I had to rank the candidates' likelihood of making the ballot, Brett Halsey's on that lower end, along with the next fella I want to talk about, Ryan Sternad, who made some comments to Vanessa Keldson of WMTV 15 News that we're going to play for you right now.
Say quality education at all levels. What does that mean to you?
Money needs to go into school systems. We could think out of the box here. How about selling alcohol at high school sporting events? I think, one, it would be rude to the kids, unfortunately, who aren't old enough to drink, to see adults drinking, but that purchasing of the beers at high school football facilities is actually going into the schools. And we also have to be careful on some liabilities. What happens if someone is driving back from a high school football game and gets into an accident? I know it's a bold decision to make, but hey, that's revenue.
Hey, that's revenue. So Ryan Sternad, beer vendor turned gubernatorial candidate, knows one policy issue very well, and that's selling beer.
Well, you know what? Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. And, being a beer vendor at the Brewers is, apparently wasn't good enough. So why not incorporate the gubernatorial race? So actually kind of based, first of all, in high school, my high school's football team sucked. It was not great. Now, I couldn't drink as a student, of course, but, I'm assuming one of these days I'll be able to sit in a high school bleacher again while I watch, my children's high school team. And, high school football can be really good, if you got a D1 athlete on it, but sometimes they're just usually not that great. So taking the edge off with a Miller High Life in the stands, he's got a point. I think they could make, who needs a fundraiser? No need to sell candy bars to fundraise jerseys or.
Who needs a referendum when your local high school football team is just selling beer? Right?
Well, imagine this. You might actually have an incentive to put money into the football programs to do better because the beer sales will be directly tied to how well the schools do. You got a better team, you have a bigger crowd, you sell more beer, Now, of course, there is, to his credit, he actually did mention that there is the whole liability thing of, are you going to have a bunch of kids, a bunch of 17-year-olds?
So that's why he's governor. He can change that in a heartbeat.
Well, yeah, I guess, lower the drinking age back to 18 or whatever. Have high schoolers drinking again. But honestly, is it going to work in practicality? Probably not.
Yes.
Stelio likes to think otherwise, but I'm not so sure. What are your thoughts?
Drinking it's the only thing that's gotten me through Wisconsin football for the past 3 years, and it's going to continue to get me through. So, I mean, if we can bring this to a shitty football team at the high school level too, I'm sure there's probably plenty of parents out there that would be very happy with that as well.
Yeah, but is that the average Democrat voter in the primary? Are they looking at these comments and saying, that's what I want? I mean, he's not talking about the trans issue. He's not talking about LGBTQ or social justice. So does he really have a chance?
I want to introduce Ryan to the Libertarian Party.
Oh,
maybe has the familiarity with that, but this had a definite libertarian tinge to it. And frankly, as someone who can buy beer at the concession stand where my daughters play t-ball, I have no problems with keeping that going into the high school level. But then again, you're gonna need some healthy ID checks to make sure.
Yes,
because
the school could be liable for all that, and they don't want to be on the hook for that, of course. But
hey, it's revenue.
Well, I heard today, and I didn't realize this, some high schools have liquor licenses. They have events on their actual campus where they host like adult events with alcohol, whether that's inside in the auditorium or I don't know if they're doing outdoor events at the football stadium. But I didn't realize that there are actually some high schools or school districts in Wisconsin that do have liquor licenses.
Now, is this events with students present, or was this just other events?
I think these are events outside of normal school hours. Yeah. I would almost definitely guarantee that.
Okay. Well, I could understand why again, but yeah, I don't know. Is that, I don't even know if that's if some schools are already doing that, is there some limiting thing for football games then?
Well, there won't be.
Well,
if Ryan's governor.
Well, if he's governor, he's just going to get rid of, who needs?
Oh, darn it, son, we're going to drink.
Yeah. Who needs to regulate the he's going to run on eliminating the red tape for the alcohol industry. It'd be perfect.
Well, let's talk about a very slightly more viable Democrat governor's candidate, and that's our favorite ramen socialist, Francesca Hong. So on the 25th, she held an event at Lambeau Field, or across the street from Lambeau, to rip Tom Tiffany for tailgateflation, which term she's coined. She said she's going to lower the cost of brats, burgers, and buns by supporting Wisconsin small businesses instead of big corporations. Now, we'll talk about that in just a moment, but I want to talk about first the 7 Reddit or Discord mods that decided to show up and stand behind her with the Hong placards. The fact that this was sent out into the X ether with no video, no follow-up tweet to explain how she could pull any of this off, because what does she consider a small business in the brat and burger and bun industry? I mean, Brownberry in Oconomowoc is owned by Bimbo, which is a multinational out of Mexico. Does she count Johnsonville, Clements, Usingers as small businesses? Because I think the most she can do if she wants to really, quote unquote, support small businesses instead of big corporations when it comes to tailgating is maybe giving some tax credits to local condiment manufacturers like Coops or Ketchup Please.
I mean, there are some, mom and pop like meat markets and such like that, but the thing is Francesca Hong's tax policy is in direct contrast to whatever she's trying to do as far as cutting inflation. But of course, in her interview that she did when she announced, they asked her, well, does that mean raising taxes to pay for your plan as governor? And she, of course, wouldn't commit to that, because the answer, of course, is yes. Actually, I'm going to take the contrarian view on this and actually say, good on Francesca Hong for actually getting a little bit of press, a little bit of earned media here. Whereas I haven't really heard much from the other candidates for Democrat governor.
It's true. She's the first one to really hit the road following her announcement.
Well, and maybe the others, I mean, to be fair, I saw that Crowley was at the corn roast, Senator Pfaff's corn roast. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was actually before he announced officially, but it's been pretty radio silent from the others. So Francesca Hong actually getting a little bit of earned media, which, to her credit, It's the first I've heard of any of the other Democrat candidates actually getting some attention. So even if it is with a handful of people that look like, they just rolled out of bed and, probably have some, just a Discord moderator. I mean, she's doing something. So I'm trying to give her some credit at least. Stelio?
Aren't you on Discord?
I mean, I do have Discord, yes, but I'm not a Discord moderator.
Okay.
There's a difference.
That was my only question.
So I do want to point out, though, something that really struck me about this is Francesca Hong seems to have run into the first hurdle when it comes to running a completely terminally online campaign by going out in public. She only drew 7 people to this. I mean, you're not talking about these big crowds that can stand behind her. So I think over the next several months, she's going to raise a lot of small dollar socialist donors, and she's going to light that money on fire, trying to figure out how to turn a terminally online candidate into someone who can function and resonate with real world voters.
Well, I think, and I think that this is not impossible, but I do think that there are a lot of campaigns that see the campaign money and then probably, I'm not saying they're not good stewards of it, but maybe they could save a little bit of money here and there. I do think if she is truly serious about running, there are ways to cut costs and not, you have to dig deep a little bit and perhaps get a little creative, but that money can go a long way. And I do think she can tap into that low dollar socialist money from around the country. And as we stated before, the Zoran Mondani election will be over in the beginning of November. Now, we'll see. I mean, I'm assuming he'll win. Not that I think he's going to turn around and all of a sudden campaign for Francesca Hong, but again, if he wins, there's going to be a lot of socialists that feel very emboldened and feel like that they can capitalize on some momentum. I'm not saying it's out of the question that, people like Bernie Sanders would come in and maybe try to help out, or, maybe Zoran, or at least the very, shouting him out or shouting Francesca out for to earn a little extra money. I mean, I think he's tapped out as far as fundraising anyway. So I don't think he can even raise that much more money. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't put it out of the question. I'm leaving the door open for Francesca Hong. Doesn't mean she's going to win, but I think she could maybe scare some people.
I think we're going to see a lot more events of hers like this. Sparsely attended, vapid, shallow, with no follow-up, trying to turn socialist bumper sticker slogans into an actual campaign. I think it's going to fail quicker and more miserably than people might believe right now, but it's going to be an expensive fail.
And I'm glad you said that, because it reminded me of something. We need to have a round table sooner rather than later, and we need to do our predictions. We need to do our future bets. We need to make sure, put some money on it as far as Republican, Democrat. I mean, even April elections, we got to do it now before things get too ahead of ourselves. And I'm sure people like Stelio, JS Online, or other third chair potential candidates, as well as some others, we should all put it in and actually do a futures bet. Because we have strong opinions and we differ a little bit, and I'd like to see who's correct in a couple of months.
Well, it won't be you.
Stelio, you have a strong betting inclination, right?
I don't know how to gamble.
You're not a gambler?
No.
Well, no. Your bookie would say otherwise, but that's another thing.
He doesn't know how to gamble either.
So, want to shift gears now. There was one big news story that came out of Manitowoc recently that I know Shadow Gov, again, we joked about it earlier, but he cares a lot about. So I'm reading from the Center Square, which posted about a joint operation between Immigration and Customs Enforcement and FBI Milwaukee led to the arrests of 21 Manitowoc County individuals in the country illegally this past Thursday. 9 of those arrested were suspected of being involved in the sexual assault and or trafficking of minor American girls. FBI Milwaukee and our law enforcement partners are dedicated to and focusing on protecting, safeguarding our Wisconsin communities every day, the department said. So that's the only bit of the news that's come out so far, but certainly shocking to find out that I believe this is the biggest ICE raid in Wisconsin so far, arresting some really, really bad hombres.
Well, we see the Los Angeles, we see the Chicago, the New York, and I get a little jealous. I want some, where's the love for Wisconsin? I know Wisconsin, we have an ICE facility in Milwaukee. I know that they have the Dodge County, that's where they, hold them in the Dodge County facility. So we do have a presence, but it just, I get a little jealous when I see all the protests and, all these other cities, but we don't seem to have much enforcement in Wisconsin. But this is a huge bust, obviously. Now, it's unfortunate that we don't have as many details on this as I would like to. I mean, I'm assuming that there'll be more coming out, but 21, obviously not a small number in this, crime ring, of course. But all in all, when you import the third world, you get the third world. Not saying we have our own organized crime, but
these are bad hombres.
Well, yeah. We could have avoided all of this if they weren't in the country to begin with. We got enough crime as it is in this country with, places like Milwaukee. We have plenty of that to deal with. We don't need any illegal immigrant crime.
I mean, these guys are involved in organized crime, were they not? These were sex traffickers, guys that were involved in organized crime. These aren't just your everyday run-of-the-mill guys.
Right.
These are just serious criminals.
They weren't just gangbangers or like a heat of the moment crime, crime of passion. It was an organized, it was ongoing, and it had ties to the cartel potentially as well. So this went deep.
You can't just traffic girls in a vacuum, I don't think.
No.
These, of course, are the types of people that Tony Evers and Sarah Russell Rodriguez want to stay in Wisconsin.
There it is. Bingo card.
These are the types of people that they want to stay. They want in here because they're, quote unquote, dairy workers and need these jobs because otherwise our milk will cost a nickel more per gallon.
Well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I wanted to pivot just slightly because obviously this was done in conjunction with some state partners, but a lot of federal agencies. Now, if I'm mistaken, earlier in the session in the state legislature, the assembly at the very least passed a law enforcement bill for county sheriffs to coordinate with federal officials as far as immigration enforcement. Long story short, we all know Dane County, Milwaukee County are non-compliant with ICE detainers. They let these people go. They do not hold them. They do not oblige ICE's detainers on these dangerous criminals, so they let them go. This is an example of county partners actually working with the federal government here. The bill that was passed in the assembly would have required that or risk state funding. So, I mean, it was pretty hefty. That being said, that passed the assembly. Where is that in the Senate? I mean, not that I'm an expert on the things that go on in the Senate, but Donald Trump won an election on mass deportations. Okay. Now we could argue, I mean, they just put out the number that 2 million have been deported, 400,000 were actual forcibly deported, where 1.6 million self-deported.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that bill? He in the legislature. I mean, Donald Trump won Wisconsin on that message. Can we not do the bare minimum and pass that bill? And I understand that, Tony Evers is going to veto it, but I mean, it gives us another chance to show Democrats are completely out of touch. And especially these crimes are not going away. This is not the 21 people that were arrested. Yes, it is a lot of people. It is a very extreme case, but it seems like every couple of weeks, another illegal immigrant has done something wrong and killed a Wisconsinite, or, in Dane County a couple of weeks ago, they killed 2 teenagers from Minnesota. I mean, this issue is not going away. So I would love if the state Senate passed that bill and send it to the governor's office.
Well, I mean, look, I think the president and the vice president have been very clear on this issue. You know, they want to use all of the resources of the federal government to curb this very serious issue. However, when it comes to coming into states and communities, I mean, the vice president said it the other week. He wants to be invited. When he was in La Crosse, and he made a comment about that coming into Milwaukee. He wants to be invited. You know, they want to be partners with local law enforcement. They want to have that invitation. So it was great to see that occurred in Manitowoc, and it'd be nice to see that happen in more places across the country.
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So with that, I want to move to the recommendation of the week. Fellas, don't know if you've had this before, but
oh yeah, I'm ready.
The Culver's Curder Burger is returning. And by the time this pod drops, you will have the opportunity to sample an absolutely iconic, delicious Curder Burger.
It started as a meme.
Yep. So started as an April Fool's joke, was born into actual burgerness in 2021. So only available for one day on National Cheese Curd Day, but due to the demand, Culver's brought it back for 2 weeks in 2022, the month of October in 2023, and last year it had a limited run of 2 weeks as well. So I can't wait to have one. That's about the amount of Curder Burger I can handle. It's not something that you have more than once, but I'm not going to tell you.
Is it a stuffed patty?
So yeah. So what they do is have a traditional butter burger with all the fixings, lettuce, tomato, onion, mayo. And along with that smash burger and cheese, there is an actual patty-sized fried cheese curd placed onto it.
It's really good.
I'm not gonna go and overhype it and say it's the best burger in Wisconsin or anything like that. But
I thought it was respectable.
It's very good.
Yeah.
You need to try it. It's only available for this short window. We love Craig Culver. Culver's not a sponsor. Would love it if they were.
Oh my goodness, the things I would do.
Yeah, we know Jabba.
Hey, I am no stranger to a double bacon butter burger.
Well, and the thing is, the Curder Burger is not, I mean, they kind of get you with the special deal. I do remember the last time I had it, I was coming from up north and I stopped by. I didn't even know the deal was going on. I was just coming from up north. It was late, needed something to eat. Well, the Curder Burger was on there and said, well, of course, gotta try it. And yeah, I don't think it was like blow your socks off, but I think it was, pretty respectable. And, cheese curds, it's iconic. So had to get it.
I think you're lying if you say that chicken tenders aren't the best thing that they have at Culver's, but I think
okay, those are some fighting words.
Wow.
Here nor there.
My elementary school age daughters think chicken tenders are the best thing on the menu. I'm more of a bacon cheeseburger guy, but to each their own.
Yeah. I do love me some chicken tendies, but it's not like what I might go to, but to each their own.
So fellas, with that, I think we had an awesome time with our ride along guests, JS Opinions and Stelio.
Thank you for having me.
So on behalf of those two and Shadow Governor Voss, I'm Justin Phillips. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to drop us that 5-star rating where available. It really helps us out. Show notes can be found on our Substack, newfashionconservatives.substack.com. Make sure to sign up there so you're the first to be alerted about any of our new content. Follow us on X at New Fashion Pod, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube at New Fashion Conservatives. Send us memes, feedback, hate mail, whatever you want to newfashionpod@gmail.com, or send us a text via the Spotify or Buzzsprout apps, which can be found right on the page. Fellas, have a good one.